Hi there, welcome to Floating in Books. Today we're going to be talking about home cooking. Random topic, I know, but hear me out. Welcome to everyone watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you are a follower of my Instagram, then you know that I don't post there very often, but when I do, it's usually food related because I really enjoy food. Who doesn't? What else is new? But I really enjoy making it myself as well. So I'm a pretty decent home cook. I'm not masterful. Like I have no intention of going onto a show like MasterChef because I'm not at that kind of level for sure. But I just really enjoy playing around with flavors and trying new things and seeing what I can do. And I did a lot of cooking over the summertime. And as I was doing it, I was like, you know what? I need to sit down and film a video and talk people through what my thought process is when it comes to cooking, because I'm a single person household, and I'm pretty sure that if you saw the amount of food that I shared with you over the summertime, that you might think, how can you eat all of that? I don't. I make food, and whenever I have leftovers, I stick it in the freezer, and I have a lot of ready-to-go meals without having to really worry about having nothing to eat. Some people call this meal prepping. Very often what I see people do that do meal prepping is they make one thing and they eat it for the rest of the week, and I'm just a little bit spoiled. Not gonna lie. I tend to be of the opinion that I want to be able to eat something differently every single day. Variation is the spice of life, so that's what I like to go for. So let me talk you through some of the different meals that I cooked over the summertime, and then towards the end I'll throw in some other successful things that I've shared on my Instagram in the past as well. So first things first, one of the things that I like to do when I do batch cooking is when I get groceries, I already have a couple of meals in my head, and then I try to make sure that those groceries can just be combined so that I'm not stuck with a lot of ingredients, and that if I need to buy an ingredient for a particular dish I want to make, that it's either something that's going to keep for a very long time. So if it's something like a spice or a dried herb, I don't really mind it that much if I need to go out and purchase something. But for the most part, I tend to stick to whatever it is that I've got stocked in my cupboards and supplement from that. That's usually how I roll. So very often what I do is that I'll buy some more groceries for like a given period. Usually it's like around a holiday that I have coming up when I have a bit more time off work, and then I can really sort of sit down and do all these things and put some more effort into my cooking, you could say. And then I don't have to spend that much time cooking throughout the week when I get home. So this first meal I want to share was a very sort of makeshift meal that I made. I had some orzo, I had a can of tomatoes, I had a tomato, I had some broccoli, and I had chorizo. What do? You combine it all together into one giant pan and you get something very tasty. Now, if you do cook with chorizo, it's quite fatty and it's got a lot of like onion and garlicky flavors already in there, a bit of spice. So you don't need to go out and add too many spices because the sausage already has some flavor, you could say. And that's the way I like to think about my cooking. In case you're a vegetarian, a vegan, then maybe you can still take inspiration out of some of these meals. However, I was diagnosed with a B12 deficiency last year, so I need to be very careful that I do eat enough meat and dairy in my diet so that I don't risk of getting below the threshold once again, which is why I could never go vegetarian or vegan ever in my life because the best source of B12 is red meat. I'm not saying chorizo is the best source of B12 at all, but that's why I try to not forego that sort of part of my cooking. But I do make regular vegetarian and vegan meals as well. One of my favorite things to make, if it's like something that I'm craving something, it's usually a burger. And I've tried so many burgers when I'm traveling and all that, but I actually prefer the one I make at home, and this is it. What I do is I get a beef patty that's like an Angus beef patty, so they're a bit thicker, they're not too thin. So they stay pretty rare in the middle when you cook them, and that's how I like my burgers. I don't like them to be overcooked, so they still have all their juices in there. I make my own burger sauce. I usually add some iceberg lettuce, some pickles. I'll very often caramelize some onions as well. Some tomato, and a slice of that really terrible melting plastic cheese. because what's a burger without plastic cheese? Something that I started making a lot over the summertime is an egg tortilla wrap. I saw this on TikTok. I was like, that's great for lunch. I've now tried it as a lunch meal by taking it to work, and it worked like that as well. So all you do is you make a bit of an omelet. I like adding cottage cheese to mine so that we get a little bit more protein in there. Then I add some slices of usually some like chicken deli meat, 1 or 2 slices of cheese, and then you put a tortilla wrap on top. You let it sit there. I usually add a little bit of like seasoning to my eggs as well. So you just like make a little omelet, put your meat and your cheese on top, then the wrap, and then when it's done cooking, you flip it over. I usually have this with some tomatoes or cucumber on the side, and I add a little bit of sriracha mayo on top to add a bit of flavor. In the summertime, I love myself some Tex-Mex, Mexican-inspired food. I'm by no means saying that this is traditionally Mexican. I just kind of whip something together most of the time. And this night I was just craving tacos, so I made tacos. Homemade guacamole, a homemade salsa pico de gallo kind of thing, and some romaine lettuce. I had some beef, and then I put some mozzarella on top. Was delicious. Now this next thing is actually something that I like to have as a salad to take with me to work. So I actually batch cooked this so that the only thing I need to do is defrost it and add some leafy greens, and then I can have it as a salad when I go to work. And it's a quinoa and grilled veggies with halloumi kind of mix. I really like this as well with roasted chickpeas, but I didn't feel like it at the time because I was having it as a warm meal that night, but very often this cools down really nicely as well, and you can eat it cold just fine. So I roasted zucchini, eggplant, and some halloumi, and then I just boiled some quinoa with some veggie stock and put it all together, and then you have this. Oh, and the red things are like those red long peppers, sweet peppers, and I added some Baby Bell cheese to this one and some tomatoes just to put some more food on my plate. Then this was this next meal is actually a complete like last minute decision. I had a bag of peas in my freezer. I had fresh mint that was about to go off, and I was like, isn't mint and pea risotto a thing? So I Googled it, and I found a couple of really good recipes. I had a bit of ricotta left in the fridge as well, so I decided to just throw that in there to make it extra creamy. Made a pea and mint puree, like used some wine in here as well, like it was a whole thing. And this is what was the final result. And this is one of the best things I made all summer. It's very flavorsome, very filling because of the peas, and it has just a really, really good texture as well. Then one of the cheapest things you could possibly make, I used the other half of the chorizo that I use with the orzo in one of the other meals I showed you. So this is how I like to go about it. Like if I buy a whole chorizo, I'm not going to eat the whole thing in one go. So I use the other half of the chorizo to make like a very cost-effective meal. If you want to eat on the cheap, rice and beans. And beans are super nutritious, so I love this. For like if you were to leave out the chorizo, you have a really nice vegetarian option. You could add mushrooms if you do still want that meaty kind of texture. Mushrooms are a really good substitute for meat if you want that chewy texture in there. I think I had some fresh cilantro or something left here, so I chucked some of that in. So those are the green bits you see. But it's kidney beans, black beans, rice, and chorizo, and it's delicious. A bit of an onion and maybe some leek or garlic. And then my current obsession are these things. The eggs came out too cooked. They should have been a bit more runny, but I've been really enjoying instant noodles and like sprucing them up by adding things in, like dumplings and rice cakes, and like adding some extra veggies in there, some eggs, some crispy chili oil on top, spring onions. Chef's kiss. I love this. This is my comfort meal. If I don't know what to cook on like a Saturday night and I want to make something quick, this is what I make. And finally, I made a red lentil and sweet pepper soup. I had some of those sweet peppers left from the grilled veggies that I made with the quinoa, and I had bought some red lentils. I was like, I need to make red lentil soup. That's going to be so delicious. Added a lot of spices in here. I usually add some za'atar to lentil soup because I feel the warmth of that spice really comes to the forefront in something like this. You can add some cardamom in here as well, like anything that's going to give you that earthy, warm feeling. So comforting, and one of the best meals again that I cooked. This one was, flavor-wise, it was definitely on point. And that was before I went to London, and then while I was in London I had lots of great food as well. So go over to my Instagram if you want to see what I had food-wise in London. But then I did more cooking when I got back. I was a bit tired once I got home, so I didn't want to do too many strenuous things straight away. So I still had some foods in the freezer that I could very easily whip up. So a couple of weeks ago, before I went on vacation, I had spent my Sunday morning making a quick shakshuka. I'll show you an image of that in a minute, what that looks like. And I had some veggies left from it that I had just popped in my freezer after cooking them. I was like, it's like a tomato sauce. I'll figure it out. So I added some kale to that tomatoey saucy base that I had. I still had some potato wedges in the freezer, and I whipped something up, and it was a lovely meal. I really enjoyed this one, and I had it 2 days in a row. Then I still had some of the tacos, like mini tacos left over, the soft tortilla wraps from making the tacos before I went on vacation, and I put them in a Ziploc bag, so they were still good to go. I had some falafel in my fridge, and I had some frozen spinach in the fridge, and I had one of those, the tomato concentrate. So I just did that. Spinach, defrosted it, added the tomato with some aromatics, put that on as a bit of a saucy base, falafel on top, some garlic sauce to finish it off, and I had a great meal yet again. And then one of my favorite summer things, I already mentioned tacos as a Tex-Mex favorite, but I love me some loaded nachos. However, it's very time consuming to make because this requires so much chopping, but flavor-wise, it was on point. Again, homemade guac, homemade salsa, homemade queso, which is a Mexican-style cheese sauce that I now found a really good recipe for, so I've saved it this time around so I know what to keep it for. It came out a little bit runny. It needed a bit more cornstarch to really bind it together. My roux didn't come out the way I'd want it to, so it wasn't holding together as well as it wanted to. However, with queso, it's usually better the next day when the cheese sauce has actually had a chance to settle. So this was right fresh when I had just made it. And I still have some of this left in my freezer because I had it left and I was like, oh, then I might be able to make some loaded nachos again in the future. Added some romaine lettuce. I didn't have sour cream, so I just plopped in some yogurt, and there you have it, a lovely plate of loaded nachos. And then I love steaming things as well, but eating an entire head of cauliflower by yourself in a week is quite the feat, let me tell you. So what I usually do is I buy a whole head of broccoli, a whole head of cauliflower, I steam both of them in my steam oven, and then I just freeze the rest. I'll have a bit of the broccoli, a bit of the cauliflower. This time I decided to have it with some salmon, and then I just freeze the rest of the veggies, and I can very easily mix and match it. So yeah, this way you just always have some veggies in the freezer. You can very easily whip up a meal. I'm sure some of the extra cauliflower is going to be turned into like cauliflower and cheese at some point. I might turn some of it into a quick Alfredo vegan kind of sauce with that I actually have a recipe for with some zucchini pasta that you can make. Really lovely. And then I wanted to try something. So when I was in the UK, I actually went to the grocery store to pick up English muffins because I'd seen these all over my TikTok and I wanted to try some. I've never had an egg McMuffin from McDonald's at all. And English muffins are just not for sale where I live. So it's just not a food I can buy. So I would have to make them myself. But I was first like, you know what? I want to try this first. So I saw a lot of people doing like pretty greasy things with like sausage and bacon and egg and cheese. And I was like, I'll try it. So this was very hearty for a breakfast. Like this is more food than I normally eat in the morning. But it was pretty good. It's not something I want to eat on the daily, but on a weekend and I have plenty of time, it was successful for me. Then some more roasted veggies that I wanted to make sure I had on hand. So again, very easy to just plop it into a salad or anything like that. I also roasted off some chicken, and the other chicken leg you'll see in the next picture because I used it in a different way. But yeah, I just had some chicken with roasted veggies. Doesn't get any better than that. There's sweet potato in the roasted veggies if you're wondering where the starches are. They're part of the veggie roasting thing. And then the next day I used that other half of the chicken to make a chicken sandwich. So I just shredded the chicken, took it off the bone, added a little bit of mayo in there, added some lettuce, popped it onto some toasted bread, and it was a really, really good lunch the next day. And then I made a mushroom soup. I decided that I wanted to try something differently. I usually make like a carrot and pumpkin soups going into fall, and then going into winter, it turns into like peas and lentils and those kind of things. And then spring, summer, I make more like tomato soups and veggie soups. So I kind of make different types of soups depending on the season. But because I knew when I make this that I would probably have quite a few portions and that it would be enough to last me until like October, I knew that the soup I was going to make was quite hearty and more like a fall thing. So that's why I went with mushroom soup, which is not something I had made recently. I made it before, but it was years ago. So I just decided to give it a whirl. So yeah, mushroom soup, very successful as well. Really enjoyed the flavor. And then I wanted to make a curry. So I made a curry with some shrimp and lots of veggies. I put some potatoes in there, some carrot, some bell peppers, those kind of things. And I should have added kale and I completely forgot. But yeah, some shrimp pasta, shrimp curry, I should say. And then I was gonna try and use a shrimp to make like spring rolls with, to take with me to work the next day. But they fell apart when I tried frying them off in the pan. So instead, I decided to have it as a salad. I still had some lettuce leaves left. I added some kimchi, some enoki mushrooms, some other veggies in there, and I had the shrimp as lunch. So this is the lunch box I took with me to work the next day. I made a quick little sauce to put on top, but I could not open the container when I was at work because some of the juices from the kimchi got all over the container. It was too greasy to open it. Oh well. It was fine. I'm sure that would have even amplified it even more, but this way it was lovely too. And then I promised to talk about shakshuka. So some of the things that I like to make, like there are a couple of standard things that I like to make that even, my friends and family, usually if they come here, they want me to make. Shakshuka is one of the things that I really enjoy if I want a heartier breakfast. Here I've got one with the eggs and the tomato and then some, I think some spinach is in there. And this was just lovely. And, if you have some of that sauce left over, you just take out the eggs and it will freeze just fine. It's really nice with pita bread and some sumac. Mac and cheese. This is something that I like to make a lot. Very often when people come over, I love making a really nice baked mac and cheese. Homemade with real cheddar is simply the best. So, sorry, not sorry. So this next meal is actually a bit of a haphazard one. So I've got some sausages here, some little croquettes filled with potato, and then one of my favorite ottolenghi recipes, which is this like roasted asparagus thing with almonds and capers. It's really, really lovely. It's in Simple, I believe. I like making that from time to time. Last year I started making my own poke bowls. So now I'm more in a noodle phase, but sometimes I'm more in a poke bowl phase. So then I make this. Here I've got some avocado, some cucumber, topped with crispy onions, some seaweed, I think some spinach as well, some edamame, and a bit of salmon. So there you go. Another thing I love, love, love making is egg and banana pancakes for breakfast with some blueberries. And here I've topped it with some yogurt and some coconut sugar. So that's a staple as well. Then I also really enjoy making, baking. I started with baking, actually. That's where I came from. I wasn't much of a cook when I first moved out, but baking I've always been pretty good at. So apple pie and also cheesecake. I've shared several of my cheesecakes over the years, and I usually make it every year for my birthday. Love making quiche, especially in the fall winter season. Here I've got a goat cheese and spinach one. Came out beautiful, love it. And who doesn't love a crumble? I very often, from time to time, I just like making things like baked oats and like crumbles that are more like breakfasty. Loving that. A good breakfast muffin I like as well. Oh yeah, brownies I like as well. This particular batch is actually from March 2020 because I did quite a lot of baking when I was stuck at home for the first round of working from home. But this is a almond flour brownie recipe, and it's the best brownie you can ever have. This one has some raspberries in as well. Oh, and this is another particular favorite of mine. This can be very easily made vegan or this one is vegetarian, but you can make it vegan if you'd like to. So this is just beans and some zucchini that you take the seeds out of, and then you get a little boat and you just fill it with tomato and bean paste and like maybe some rice if you'd like. And then you can put cheese on top if you'd like to, but you could also stick to nutritional yeast. This is actually a vegan recipe, but I always add the cheese, making it non-vegan. But that's one of my favorites. And I also love gnocchi. So I love making gnocchi bakes, especially from the oven. So gnocchi and blue cheese with some broccoli and mushrooms is like one of my favorite meals as well in the winter time. Potato and leek soup I like. Oh, and one of my other favorites, which I haven't made this in a while, but I love making cauliflower pizza. So again, a more like low carb kind of version of a pizza where you make the pizza crust out of cauliflower. It's another favorite thing of mine. And then topped with mushrooms and tomatoes, pesto, and then some cheese on top. Chef's kiss, very delicious. I should be making that again sometime. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of like things I really wanted to share with you. Because everything seems to be more like a rendition of the same thing. But yeah, I'm just someone who really likes to really enjoys cooking and likes testing out recipes. I don't really follow recipes though. I just kind of throw things together, and then especially when it's like, you know, summer break or like Christmas break, I like to try my hand at different things, make some more recipes with it, and then just freeze it and have it for a couple of weeks. And that way I don't have to spend that much money on groceries because I have a lot of food in my freezer. The only thing that shouldn't happen is, you know, if my power is cut or something like that, that would be detrimental at the moment. Because my freezer is now so full that I really need to first start eating some of these meals before I can cook again. But yeah, I love cooking and I really enjoy doing that. And whenever I have friends over, I like making things as well. I don't always have the energy to do it, but I do really enjoy cooking from time to time. So I really hope you enjoyed watching this rambly different video from my usual fare. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, and maybe if you ever want to see me actually cook, because I don't think I've ever filmed myself cooking, and then maybe I can do something. We'll see. Like if this is something you're interested in, then please let me know. And for now, thank you so very much for joining me. I make videos once a week on here, so hope to see you again next week. See you then. Bye-bye.